Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanapano Premamritam Manidhi Dhiradhi Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuran Milidanyena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manavistam Stavidanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamaya Dadanti Swapadanti Kam. First of all, I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Diksha Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asatala Sata Sri Simad, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Then I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asatala Sata Sri Simad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha Gurus, Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharti Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, unto Sri Arjuna, the hearer of Bhagavad Gita, unto Srimad Bhagavad Gita itself, and I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of all the great commentators on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the original Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and to all the great commentators on Bhagavad Gita. And I offer my humble obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are present here today. My Dandava Pranam. So, yesterday we spoke about the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We explained that Arjuna asks two questions, question 6 and question 7, following the narrative that drives the book are the questions of Arjuna to Krishna. Okay, so we're now in the 2nd division of Bhagavad Gita, the 6 chapters on Bhakti. We've talked about the 6 chapters on Karma Yoga. We see that the 6th and 7th question were both asked in the 6th chapter. That the passive yoga appears impractical due to unsteady nature of the mind, and what is the destination of an unsuccessful transcendentalist. So Krishna answers these questions, and at the end of the 6th chapter, he says that the greatest yogi is the bhakti yogi. And he explains in the 7th chapter what is sambandha gyan, what is union with him. Because at the end of the 6th chapter, he says, Madgaten antaratmanam, who is most intimately united with me, sambandha. Who has sambandha with me? How? In bhakti, Shradavan bhajate yomam, who has sambandha with me with faith and worships me with love, bhakti. So this person is the highest of all yogis. Same yuktatamo mata. So this is how he ends the 6th chapter. So then in the 7th chapter, he gives sambandha gyan. This is who I am. I am the Supreme Personality. Matta paratamana nyat kinchit asti dhananjaya. Sutre maniganaiva. Everything rests upon me as the pearls are resting on the thread. This is Advaigyan Paratattva, which I have explained in a previous videotape. Now, 7th chapter, he gives this, then he gives who doesn't surrender to him, who does surrender to him. He explains all these details. So this is important chapter because it establishes who has union with Krishna, who seeks to engage in a process of devotion and become united with Krishna. Madgaten antaratmanam. Okay, so in the 7th chapter, no questions are asked. Krishna is speaking the whole chapter. Now, 8th chapter, he's going to ask questions in verse 1 and verse 2, and these questions will take us through the whole 8th and 9th chapter. Krishna will do all the speaking after verse 1 and 2, where Arjuna asks the questions. Krishna will do all the speaking in the 8th and the 9th chapter, and he'll answer all the questions in those 2 chapters. What is Prayojan Tattva, the goal, and what is the process, Abhideya. All this will be given in these 2 chapters. And we will hear many verses in these chapters which are reflecting or presaging what is about to be spoken in future chapters, in 10th and 11th chapter. And when we get to 10th and 11th chapter, we will refer back. And we will show how what Krishna is speaking in the 8th chapter or 9th chapter is now being reflected upon or expressed in a more deep and clear meaning in the 10th and the 11th chapter. Okay? All of that will be brought out over the course of the lectures that we are giving for some days here. So now we go to the 8th chapter. We go to verses 1 and 2, which is the question that will drive the narrative for the next 2 chapters by Krishna Bhagavan. Sri Krishna Bhagavan. Arjuna Vatsha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adhibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kim Uchyate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the Self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? What are the demigods? Please explain this to me. So now Arjuna asks these questions and more. Adhi yagna katam kotra dehismin madhusudana prayana kale cha katam neosi niyatatmabi. How does this Lord of sacrifice live in the body? And in which part does he live, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So, these are the important questions. Prabhupada makes the point in his purport. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers these different questions of Arjuna, beginning with what is Brahman. The Lord also explains karma, fruit of activities, devotional service, yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the Supreme Absolute Truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. This is Advaigyan Paratattva, the verse I have given. Vedanti tat tattva vidam tattvam yajnanam advayam. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaneti Shabdate. This is in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. where it is saying that Vedanti Tat Tattvam, who is the knowers of Vedanta, those persons who know Vedanta, Tattvam Yajnanam, they know Advayam, that this one non-dual substance, the Supreme Absolute, they know that it has three aspects. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaneti, Shabdate. So, Prabhupada is referring to that verse here in the purport. Okay? Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to the body, not the soul. Refers to body. Oh, Atma refers to body, soul, and mind. Okay. Arjuna inquires about Atma, which refers to body, soul, and mind, the three. Okay. According to Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, soul, body, and senses also. So the word Atma is interchangeable in many different ways. So here he's inquiring about Atma, which refers to body, soul, and mind. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Person, or the Supreme Lord, as Purushottama. He uses this word in the Sanskrit. He says, Kim Karma Purushottama. You are the Purush, person, Uttama, supreme, greatest. You are the greatest person. You are the Supreme Person. Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, Sri Krishna, knowing him to be the supreme authority, able to give definitive answers. Then, in the next, he says, how does this Lord of Sacrifice live in the body? And in which part does he live, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? But then, Prabhupada says in this purport, Arjuna addresses the Lord as Madhusudana because Krishna once killed a great demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubts, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjuna, because Arjuna is a Krishna-conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. Since Krishna is so expert in killing demons, Arjuna here addresses him as Madhusudana, so that Krishna might kill the demoniac doubts that arise in Arjuna's mind. So, this is why he's addressed as Purushottama and as Madhusudana. When these names are used in the Gita, they have very deep significance. We should understand their meaning. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, meaning is being explained. So now, verse number 3. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Dhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavo Bhava Karo Visarga Karma Samgnita. The Supreme Lord said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called the Self. Action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma, or fruit of activity. So now, Krishna is describing these items one at a time. He's saying that the transcendental living entity who is living within this body, the indestructible transcendental living entity, is called Brahman. So he's attributing the word Brahman to the jiva. This refers back to what I was quoted from Sri Upanishads. Prabhupada talks in the purport of the 16th and 17th verses of Upanishads that the Brahman effulgence of Krishna is everywhere. It is all over. Everything is resting on that Brahman effulgence. The spiritual world, the material world, the Tatastha Shakti, everything rests on that Brahman. And Prabhupada talks about that in the 4th chapter, verse 24. The Brahman is everywhere, he says. Everything is resting on the Brahman. Everything is the Brahman. And in the Ishopanishads, he says that both the conditioned and liberated souls are atomic particles within that Brahman. So here, Krishna says that you're asking what is Brahman. I'm telling you that Brahman is the indestructible transcendental living entity, which is an atomic particle within my effulgence. And then he is placed either in the spiritual world or material world according to the inclination. In the 17th verse of the Ishopanishads, Prabhupada says that it has already been explained that the jivas are atomic particles within the Brahman, and some of them have inclination to come to the material world, so they're placed here. With full sense of existence. Prabhupada says they have full sense of existence. This is explained later on in different purports by Prabhupada and by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They all talk about the fact that the jiva is a seed, okay? A seed. And it has everything there. The full sense of its spiritual form and spiritual activities, everything are present in the jiva. Just like a woman, she has an egg. And the egg has the potential to be a human being. The egg comes from the ovaries down the fallopian tubes. It comes there. It attaches itself to the womb. And there it waits. If the egg is touched by the sperm, by the seed, then the full potential of that egg to become a human being is manifest. Everything is already there, but it cannot manifest without the seed. Similarly, the jiva, it has the full potential to be a full spiritual personality in the spiritual world. The potential is there in the seed form. But the Bhakti Lata Bij is given, the seed. The seed then touches the jiva, and that spiritual seed comes in the form of light, spiritual air, spiritual water, nourishment, then grows. And the spiritual form develops and then manifests. Everything is present there already. We should understand this. Prabhupada says in the purport, Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. This we have discussed. This is the Shankaracharya's philosophy, Mayavadi philosophy, transformation of Brahman. We don't accept this. We believe in Shakti. Shakti Parinamvad means that Krishna has unlimited energies, and those energies, by their power, make all these things happen. They manifest the material world. And what is the material world? It's the shadow of Rama Devi, who is the expansion of Radha. So it is a transfer. It's not a transformation. It is a manifestation of God's energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate. He has multifarious energies, and Radha is the source of all those energies. So, therefore, the constitution of the Brahman is indestructible and not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Param Brahma. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Param Brahma refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now Prabhupada is showing Brahman, Jiva, Param Brahma, God. They're not one. In quality, yes, but in quantity, no. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. The material consciousness, his nature, in material consciousness, the nature of the living entity is to try to be the Lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme Lord, the Param Brahma. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. So here, Krishna is saying that the transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called the Self. An action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma. And here Prabhupada explains, what is this karma? The karma is the desire of the jiva. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. Because the Jivatma develops material consciousness, and he has a desire to be the Lord over this material world, and he wants to enjoy the material world, then, as a result, he's forced to take material bodies, and for every action, there's a reaction. Those actions which are in accordance with the Vedas, karma, means pious work. That is a good reaction. Vikarma, impious work, actions against the laws of the Vedas. And then akarma, devotional service, action within inaction, because there's no reaction, because the fruit of the action is given to the supreme source of all action, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is the delineation of the three things. You understand? Okay. And Prabhupada, he emphasizes these things because this is part of Valdev Vidyabhushan. He heavily gave his commentary heavily based on Madhvacharya's Dvaita. There's two. There's Jiva and God. There's the Supreme and the living entity. There's the Brahman and there's Krishna. There's the material and there's the spiritual. Two. Everything two. He always made the division. So Prabhupada used that commentary because this is what he was sent here to the West to do. It's in his pranam mantra. What is his pranam mantra? Nirvishesha sunyuvari paschatya. Paschatya means Western world. Paschatya desh, the Western countries. He has come to the Western countries to do what? to destroy the conceptions of Nirvishesh, Mayavadi, and Sunyavad, this voidist philosophy of Vaisheshika and Buddhists. So, this void and Mayavad, impersonal. These two conceptions, Prabhupada has come to destroy these conceptions. That is his mission. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharyane. He has come to preach Gaura's instructions, the teachings of Gaura. What are the teachings of Gaura? Rupa Shiksha, Sanatan Shiksha, Roy Ramanand Samvad, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashanand Saraswati. This is Gauravani. You see, Prabhupada made one book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. In that book, he gives all these katha. Rup Shiksha, Sanatan Shiksha, Roy Ramanand Samvad, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Prakashanand Saraswati. This katha he gives. This is Gauravani. He has come to give this Gauravani. This is why Teachings of Lord Chaitanya is so valuable book. Because it is the essence of what Prabhupada came to teach. And here we see that he is emphasizing this principle. So, Gauravani Pracharyane, Nevashesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desh Ataryane. I have come to this world. He has come to this world for the purpose of defeating Mayavad and voidist philosophies and conceptions. And therefore, he emphasizes again and again in the purport. In Vedic literature, the living entity, Jivatma, is called Jivatma and Brahman. The living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Param Brahma. The living entity, Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter. And sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. Identification. What does he identify with? What is his intentions? We'll be talking about that in this chapter. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species, but in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he's sometimes manifested as a man, a demigod, an animal, a beast, a bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices. But when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. So in this way, Prabhupada starts to lay out the sojourn, which is what I'm talking about in my book, my other book about karma and reincarnation. Text number 4. Adibhutam sharo bhava purushas chadidaivatam adhi yagno ham evatra dehi deha britam vara. Physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. As we discussed before, the material energy is neither created nor destroyed, but it is endlessly mutable. The forms are not permanent. They are temporary. This was before a tree. Before it was a tree, it was a seed. So now it has become a table. At some point, it will go back into the landfill and it will become earth. It will break down. It will become eaten by insects, termites. then it will become the stool of the termites, then it will become earth, then the earth will get seeds, then the seeds will grow grass, then the grass will be eaten by the cows. Endlessly mutable. The forms change again and again. The energy is there. It's not created. It's not destroyed. It's manifest. But the form, temporary. So Prabhupada says in that previous purport, he says, in material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species of life. But in spiritual nature, one body. One body. It's eternal. The form, spiritual substance and spiritual form is everlasting. There's no change. Okay? That's why Krishna says, they don't understand my nature, which is changeless and supreme. Because Krishna, inside, outside, same. Krishna's form, Krishna's mind, Krishna's senses, Krishna's words, everything is the same. It's all Krishna, it's all the Supreme Person. There's no difference between Krishna's inside and outside. Krishna has only one side, Krishna. So physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. The universe is the cosmic form of the Lord. So this will be discussed in the 11th chapter. First, Krishna will talk about it in the 10th chapter. I am this, I am that, I am so many things. Then in the 11th, he will display this cosmic form. So, the universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Lord. And then Krishna says, and I am that Lord. I am that Lord. Represented as the super soul, dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. Because Arjuna asks, where does the Lord of Sacrifice reside? Who is the Lord of Sacrifice? Vishnu, 4 arms. This is another thing. This is presaging what's going to happen again in the 11th chapter, where Arjuna asks to see the universal form, the cosmic form. Then he says, I'm frightened by this. I don't want to see it anymore. Then he asks for the 4-arm form, then the 2-arm form. So like this, all this discussion is the setup for what will happen in the 11th chapter. This is how the narrative is being driven. Okay? And then in the next verse, Antakale chamam meva smaram muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So here Prabhupada says, this is the importance of Krishna consciousness, because Krishna is saying, if you remember me alone, if you think only of me, if you don't think of anything else or anyone else, you remember me, then you will come to me. You will attain my nature. What does that mean? Our nature and Krishna's nature are both Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Sat Chit Ananda. But Krishna is infinite and we are infinitesimal. We have a limit to our knowledge, to our bliss. There's some small. It's like a drop. Okay? So, and Krishna says, of this there's no doubt. You should not doubt this. You should not have any samshaya. Samshaya means doubt. You should not have any doubt. There is no doubt here. Now, a very famous verse. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajat yante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya sad tad bhava bhavida. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits this body, that state he will attain without fail. So this makes it very clear. Why is Krishna giving this verse? He's giving this verse because people misinterpret the verse he has spoken about earlier. Ye yatam mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyam. Everyone follows my path in all respects. As they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. Now he's answering that in a deeper way. Everyone follows my path in all respects doesn't mean that if I worship Shiva or Durga or Ganesha or Surya or this one or that one, in the end it's all the same. No, that's not what it means. And he's going to further elaborate that on that in this very chapter. However, here he's giving the first step. Whatever state. As you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly. So whatever state a being one remembers when he quits this body, that state he will attain without fail. You worship Shiva, you think of Shiva, you will go to Shiva. This he will explain later in this chapter. Whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death. That's why Prabhupada says in the purport of the previous verse, and whoever at the time of death quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness at once transferred to the transcendental abode of the Supreme Lord. Smaram, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness. So practice is required. And that practice will be talked about in the 9th chapter. Here he's telling us we have to practice. How we practice, in 9th chapter, he will tell us how we practice. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. Mayarpita manobudhir mam evaishyasi asamshaya. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. In the verse, it says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara. Mam, Krishna, me, anusmara, always remembering. But Prabhupada makes the point, think of me. Which me? Me in the form of Krishna. Me, Krishna, who's standing before you with 2 arms. This form. And this will be established in the 9th, 10th, and 11th chapters. And 12th. In all those chapters. So this is why this is bhakti. These 6 chapters are about bhakti. And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. Why Krishna is doing this? Because he wants to establish that there's no excuse for not doing bhakti. You can't say, oh, I have too many problems. I have too many difficulties. Oh, I can't do bhakti. Oh, like this. No. Arjuna is fighting a war. He's killing his family. But he's thinking of Krishna. With love. with love and devotion. He's thinking of Krishna. Very important point. Krishna wants to establish that. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Without doubt. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partanu chintayam. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha Arjuna, is sure to reach me. Kavim Puranam Anustitaram Anor Aniyam Sam Anusmared Ya Saravasya Dataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. So, again, Krishna, he is giving some instruction about how the meditation should be conducted, what you should think about. This appears to be in the mood of Aishwarya, worshipping the opulences of Krishna. He is not indicating the more intimate conception of Raganuga Bhakti. That will be indicated later on. Now, he's just talking about worshipping in the mood of Aishwarya. Prayana kale manasa kalena chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bruvur madhye pragnam aveshya samyak satam param purusham upaita divyam. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and, in full devotion, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here, Krishna is still discussing from the perspective of yoga, okay? How one fixes his life air between the eyebrows. We talked earlier in a previous video about the distinctions. There's the body, physical body. Then there's the subtle body made of mind, intelligence, and false ego, which is inside the physical body. Then inside the subtle body is the soul. And Krishna explains in the 13th chapter, 34th verse, that the soul is in one area of the body, just like the sun is in one area of the universe, and just like the sunshine comes from the sun and goes all over the universe, so the consciousness comes from the soul and goes all throughout the subtle and gross bodies. So, the consciousness is what comes in contact with material nature, not the soul. Just like the sun is shining, and the sunshine evaporates the urine of the dog on the ground. It comes in contact with the clouds and the air pollution. So the sunshine becomes somewhat polluted. But the sun does not become contaminated. The soul is never contaminated. The soul is always untouched. But the consciousness emanating from the soul comes into the material atmosphere and is affected by the modes of material nature, rajas, tamas, and sattva. And therefore, the consciousness, there's one verse in the Upanishads, Esha Anuratma, that the soul is in one place in the area of the heart, and yet it is floating on the different life airs. So floating on the different life airs, there is these different airs in the body. We have the Apanvat, which goes down. It's in this area. And this is connected to the Muladhara chakra and the Swadhisthana chakra, which deals with sex and passing stool. So people who are in this world interested in these pleasures, sex and passing stool, so then their consciousness is floating in this area. You understand? And those who have some ambition and want to know more about the world and try to use the power of their consciousness to control the world, so then it will float in this area, because this is where the Gyanamoya Kosh is, material knowledge, Pranamoya Kosh, the defense of the life. It comes in this area. So these airs, Samanvat, Pranvat, it will come in here. But then Vishuddha, this is where consciousness is transformed by sound. It is transformed by sound. Prabhupada talks about this, 3rd canto, 26th chapter, verse 32. Anavriti Shabdat. This is the Vedanta Sutra aphorism. Anavriti Shabdat. That material is transformed by sound. So the material world manifests by sound. That's in that verse, 326:32. It manifests by sound. And it is transformed into Brahman, spiritualized, by sound. By sound, we become liberated. By material sound, we become in bondage in this world. And by spiritual sound, we become liberated. Anavriti Shabdat. So, Vishuddha chakra. This is very important. How we use this chakra, okay? That it is engaged in the process of glorifying Krishna and speaking Krishna Katha. This is be explained in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And here Krishna is saying, who fixes the life air between the eyebrows? So this area, okay, this is the Vigyan, Agna Chakra, the Vijnanamoya Kosh. This is about knowledge of the world, Jnanamoya Kosh, and Vigyan, the difference between matter and spirit, and the source of both, Vigyan, intellect. The intellect, Prabhupada used to say, the intellect is right next to the soul, because the intellect can discriminate. It is the computer programmer, and the mind is the computer program. Once the mind is properly programmed by the intelligence, then anusmarana. It is fixed in remembrance of Krishna. But it's by the intelligence that you have to fix it. So the life air should not be flowing. The life air should not be floating in the lower, the soul, the consciousness. Not the soul. The soul stays in one area. But the consciousness should not be floating in the lower life airs. It should be fixed here. in Vijnanamoya, making the distinction, separating from the Maya and seeing the difference between the illusory material world and the reality of the eternal, transcendental, spiritual world. It should be focused on that. And so, therefore, he emphasizes here this conception, fixing the mind between, fixing the life air between the eyebrows. Don't focus the consciousness in the lower airs of life. Focus the consciousness here, in this air, in Vijnana. Yad aksharam vedavido vedanti, vishanti yad yatayo vitaraga, yad ichanto brahmacharyam charanti, tatte padam sangrahena pravakshye. Persons learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkar, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into the Brahman, which is the effulgence of Krishna. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. So here, Prabhupada makes mention in the purport that Lord Krishna explains that Brahman, although one without a second, has different manifestations and features. For the impersonalists, the syllable Om is identical with Brahman. Krishna here explains the impersonal Brahman in which the renounced order of sages enter. So this is what he's emphasizing here, and Prabhupada is stating that. And he's saying also about the importance of practicing celibacy, because if one does not practice celibacy, the more he is engaged in performing sense gratification with the opposite sex, the more he becomes bound up into the physical bodily consciousness. This is the one thing that creates a bondage to the physical bodily consciousness. So the more we stay away from this particular activity, the more we become detached from the physical bodily consciousness. And therefore, Prabhupada makes the point that unless one practices celibacy, advancement in spiritual life is very difficult. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has announced, according to the scriptural injunctions for the age of Kali Yuga, that no process of realizing the Supreme is possible except the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now Prabhupada is using the purport to redirect the emphasis to the chanting of the holy name and to the worship of the personal form of Krishna. However, the process of yoga can be used to meditate here in the next couple of verses, and Prabhupada will explain it in the purport. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing the door of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head, the Sahasrara Chakra, the Anandamaya Kosh. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. It is clearly stated here that Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. The impersonal sound of Krishna is Om, but the sound of Hare Krishna contains Om. It is clearly recommended in this age that if one quits his body at the end of his life chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, he will reach the spiritual planets. Similarly, those who are devotees of Krishna enter the Krishna planet of Goloka Vrindavan, whereas the impersonalists remain in the Brahmajyoti. The personalists also enter many innumerable planets in the spiritual sky known as Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is the place where we have Aishwarya, worship of the Lord in awe and reverence. And this is Dasya Ras and a partial manifestation of Sakya, of the friendship, but it's friendship with awe. But in Goloka, we have different. It's not awe and reverence. We don't see Krishna in awe and reverence. We see him as Sakya, an intimate friend, or we see him as Vatsalya, our beloved child, or Madhurya, our lover, our eternal lover. So, Prabhupada is going to address this in the next purport, but I wanted to bring up something of what Prabhupada talks about in the 28th chapter of the Krishna book, in the 7th paragraph. In that paragraph, in the 28th chapter of the Krishna book, Prabhupada explains that one who performs bhakti yoga successfully, he uses the word successfully, he will go directly to the Vaikuntha planets at the end of this life. Then later he says, but the mature, pure devotees who execute Krishna consciousness completely go to the universe where Krishna is doing his pastimes, and they take appearance there, and they get trained up, and then they go to Goloka. So this is not different from what Prabhupada is saying in the previous purports, when Prabhupada says that one who meditates on Krishna, when they leave this world, they go to live on the planet of Goloka with Krishna, or they go to live with Krishna in his supreme abode. Because there is no difference from Krishna's abode here in the different material universes and Krishna's abode in the spiritual universe. Gokula and Goloka are the same. So because Gokula and Goloka are the same, therefore, when Prabhupada says the mature, pure devotee who executes Krishna consciousness completely, who completely performs pure devotional service, he goes to the universe where Krishna is performing his pastimes, he gets trained up, and then he goes to Goloka in the spiritual world. So there's a training period that has to go on there. Now, in the next verse, Krishna says, Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati nityasa tasyaham sulabha parata nitya yuktasya yogina. For one who remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So then, Srila Prabhupada points out, a pure devotee constantly remembers Krishna and meditates upon him. These are qualifications of a pure devotee for whom the Lord is most easily attainable. Bhakti Yoga is the system that the Gita recommends above all others. Generally, the Bhakti Yogas are engaged in 5 different ways. 1. Shanta Bhakti, engaged in devotional service and neutrality. 2. Dasya Bhakti, engaged in devotional service as a servant. 3. Sakya Bhakti, engaged as a friend. 4. Vatsalya Bhakti, engaged as a parent. 5. Madhurya Bhakti, engaged as a conjugal lover of the Supreme Lord. In any of these ways, the pure devotee is always constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord and cannot forget the Supreme Lord. And so for him, the Lord is easily attained. A pure devotee cannot forget the Supreme Lord for a moment, and similarly, the Supreme Lord cannot forget his pure devotee for a moment. This is the great blessing of the Krishna consciousness process of chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mamupetya punarjanma dukkalayam shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Then in the next verse, Abrahma bhuvanaloka punarvartino arjuna mammupetya tukunteya punarjanma navidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So, a question can come up here. If, when one goes to Krishna's abode, he never takes birth in the material world again, then how could the living entity fall from the spiritual world, from Krishna's abode, and come here? So someone may give the example or the argument that once the living entity goes to the spiritual world from here, he knows how difficult Maya is, and he doesn't want to go back to Maya. So therefore he stays in the spiritual world and he never comes back. But then that would mean that you're in the spiritual world not out of love of Krishna, but out of fear of Maya. And that's not bhakti. Bhakti is about love of Krishna, not fear of Maya. In the lower stages, there is some fear of karma and Maya. And so in the beginning stages, one wants to avoid the reactions to material nature. And so he may engage in devotional service with this purpose in mind. But then, as he gradually progresses and gains knowledge of Scripture and understands by association with devotees, sadhu sangha, the depth of the theology, then he doesn't have an inclination to take up the process of bhakti simply based on the fear of being in the material world, but he starts practicing bhakti based on the knowledge that he has of the glories of the spiritual world. When he goes further, he goes past that. He comes to the platform of acting out of love by association with other pure devotees who act out of love. Then his desire to act out of love increases. For instance, in India, it is a practice that when a young woman has a baby, she will get another female member of the family, usually a girl around 12 years old, who is a niece or a cousin, to come and live with her and help her take care of the baby. Now, when this girl comes, she doesn't have the same love for the baby that the mother does. The mother loves the baby from the second she's pregnant. I love my baby, I love my baby. That's natural. That love is spontaneous. And automatically she loves the baby and she's ready to do anything for the baby. Sacrifice her life for the baby. No problem. But this girl doesn't have that. This young girl is coming, so now she begins to associate with the mother. She sees how the mother takes care of the baby. She sees how the mother loves the baby. And she follows the instructions of the mother on how to bathe the baby and massage the baby and clean the baby and take care of the baby. And she does all the things. And gradually by association, she develops love for the baby. Such love that she too would sacrifice her life to protect the baby. Could she learn that from a book? No. Could she learn that by going to school? No. This can only be learned by the direct association of the mother. Similarly, we can get so much knowledge from the book. We can get so much knowledge from the classes and those lecture tapes. But to get this love for Krishna, we have to associate directly with those who have that love in their heart. And then they transmit it through the transcendental sound vibration of their voice to the heart of the devotee who is hearing in the proper mood. Srila Prabhupada talks about this, as I explained, in 3:25-25, third canto, 25th chapter, 25th verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that one must associate with satam. This is how Krishna consciousness begins, by associating with the pure devotees. He said, simply by theoretical knowledge or study, one will only make negligible progress. Negligible means very small. Then later in the same purport he says, a non-devotee who can never understand the pastimes of Krishna by reading Srimad Bhagavatam or any other Vedic literature. Because he will think of it as fantasy or some novel, fiction. Why? Prabhupada says, because he has not heard the pastimes explained in the proper mood. This key sentence, they can get knowledge from the book, but they can't get the mood from the book. The mood has to come by the direct association of the sadhu, of the devotee. And when he speaks and you hear the pastimes, therefore Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on that verse, 325, is that by hearing the excellent pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the lips of the sadhu, then the anarthas in our heart become removed. And by hearing the pastimes, we get nishta, firm faith. And by hearing the pastimes, we get ruchi, taste. And by hearing the pastimes, we get asakti, attachment. And by hearing the pastimes, we get bhav. So in this way, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that each stage of progress in bhakti yoga is accomplished by hearing and associating with the pure devotees and hearing the excellent pastimes from their lips, not simply by reading the book. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada makes the point when he's talking about the disciples of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who were saying that they can understand everything by reading Bhakti Vinod Thakur's books. And he makes the point that if the book is not indicating the purpose of the book is to lead one to the point of hearing from the sadhu. And if that purpose is denied, if one simply reads the book for the sake of reading it and denies the point of the purpose of the book, which is to hear from the living sadhu, the manifest acharya, then it is a wrong process of studying the book. Makes it very clear. It's a lecture that he gave. You can find it on the internet. It's called Thakur Bhakti Vinod by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. In that lecture, he makes it clear that the purpose of the book is to lead one to hearing from the sadhu. So, getting back to the point about never taking birth again in this material world. If you say that once you've been in this material world, when you go back to Godhead, you won't come back because you're afraid of Maya, then that means you're in Goloka out of fear, not out of love. And bhakti is about love. It's about loving Krishna. Loving him so much that you forget about Maya. That's what bhakti is about. In Jaiva Dharma, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur makes it very clear that when Lord Balaram places the jivas in Goloka, they never see Maya, they never hear of Maya, and they have no knowledge of Maya. So if they don't have any knowledge of Maya, then how will they fall from there and come here? It's not possible. He says in the Jaiva Dharma that when Mula Sankarshan and Maha Sankarshan put the jivas in the Vaikuntha planets and Dwarka and Mathura and Ayodhya and all these places, they never see Maya and they never hear of Maya. So they have no reason to come here. And any speculation, you have so many of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, like Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, so many who are emphasizing that Maya is not in the spiritual world. No one can see Maya. No one can know Maya, and no one can come here by Maya. Therefore, they never fall from the spiritual world. Prabhupada in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, when he's giving the commentary on the different pros and cons of why Jai and Vijay come to this world, he says, the conclusion must be that no one falls from Vaikuntha. So, the final, he may say so many statements here or there, but the final statement is, No one falls from Vaikuntha. And therefore, we should understand the actual position. Prabhupada gives that in the 16th and 17th verses of the Ishopanishads. All liberated and conditioned souls are atomic particles in the Brahman. And some of them have a desire to come here to this material world. They get placed in the glance of Mahavishnu. When they look at the material world, they come here. And those who look at the spiritual world, they go there. Very clear instructions are given throughout the teachings by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, very clear. Now, on a lighter note, a little story about Prabhupada. When he was in Hawaii, first or second time he was in Hawaii, they took him on a tour of Hawaii. They took him to all these different places. The beaches and the mountains and this and that, different, forests all over. So they took him to this one place, the end of the tour for the day. He was sitting on a mountainside overlooking these falls and the ocean. Gorgeous, gorgeous place. So Prabhupada was sitting there and he said, Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punara Vartino Arjuna. So, okay, Prabhupada's going to tell us that every place is birth, death, disease, and old age. From Brahma Loka to Patala Loka, every place is birth, death, disease, and old age. There is no enjoyment here in the material world. And he paused. Prabhupada was always very good at this. Dramatic punctuations. So then he paused and he said, but if one could enjoy in this material world, it would be here in Hawaii. And Prabhupada always had a very good sense of humor. So now Prabhupada, Krishna starts giving information about what it means when we say a Brahma Bhuvana Loka, from Brahma's planet down to the lowest planet. All are places of birth, death, and disease and old age. So he explains how this cycle takes place. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Mahar Yad Brahmano Vidu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Taho Ratra Vido Jana. He's talking about the day and the night. Ratra is the night and the day. He's talking about how the day and the night is Aha and Ratra. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. So, there are four yugas. Prabhupada explains it here. The cycle of Satya is characterized by virtue, wisdom, and religion. There's there being practically no ignorance and vice, and the age of that yuga lasts 1,728,000 years. Excuse me. In the Treta Yuga, vice is introduced, and this yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. In the Dwapara Yuga, there is an even greater decline in virtue and religion, vice increasing, and this yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally, in Kali Yuga, the yuga we have now been experiencing for the past 5,000 years, There is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice, true virtue being practically non-existent, and this yuga lasts 432,000 years. So, all of these yugas taken together are given, he talks about it here, 8,432,000 years. And that's one Divya Yuga. So there's 1,000 Divya Yugas. Okay, the 4 yugas together are one Divya, and there's 1,000. So that's why he says here, 1,000 ages. Sahasra Yuga. 1,000 ages means 1,000 Divya Yugas. So that altogether is 8,432,000,000 years. Then, that's the day. Then the day ends. Then the night begins. So, when Brahma's day is manifest, the multitude of living entities comes into being. And at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. So when he goes to sleep for 1,000 Divya Yugas, then all the living entities sleep also. Again and again, the day comes, and the host of beings is active, and again the night falls, O Partha, and they are helplessly dissolved. Yet there is another nature, parastasmat tu bhavo nyo. There is another nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. So the spiritual world never changes. That supreme abode is called unmanifested and infallible, and it is the supreme destination. When one goes there, he never comes back. Tad Dhamma paramam mama. Avyakto shara iti yuktas tam mahu paramam gatim. Yam prapya na nivartante tad Dhamma paramam mama. When one goes there, he never comes back. That is my supreme abode. The supreme abode of the personality of Godhead Krishna is described in the Brahma Samhita as Chintamani Dham, a place where all desires are fulfilled. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Purusha sa paraparta bhaktya labhyastvan ananyaya. So this is for shadowing a verse that will be spoken later in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Ananya Bhakti. Yasyanta stani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attained by unalloyed devotion. Bhaktya labhyastvananyaya. Ananyaya. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. O best of the Bharats, I shall now explain to you the different times at which passing away from this world, one does or does not come back. And he goes into a discussion about the sun's movements. Those who know the Supreme Brahman pass away from the world during the influence of the fiery god in the light, at an auspicious moment during the fortnight of the moon, and the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. In other words, when the moon is growing, okay, when it's going towards Purnima, or fullness, that is called the fortnight of the moon that he's talking about. He's talking about those 14, 15 days from the new moon, the dark moon, to the full moon, when the moon is growing. That's the fortnight of the moon that you want to pass away in, when the moon is growing. And the 6 months when the sun travels in the north, which means from January to June. Okay? The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the moonless fortnight, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, or who reaches the moon planet, again comes back. According to the Vedas, there are 2 ways of passing from this world. One in light, one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. The devotees who know these 2 paths, Arjuna, are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. The person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving in charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. At the end, he reaches the supreme abode. So here, Krishna talks about something very important, about the fact that the path of devotional service is not bereft of. In other words, it is not less than. One should not think that if I don't study the Vedas, see, these are, in Vedic culture, there's principles, and there's dharma, and there's duties. This is what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was talking about. That every morning he has to wake up, he has to do his bath, then he has to do his mantras, his meditation, his prayers, his oblations, his yajna, everything he has to do, all the rules. These are the duties that he has to perform. And so part of that is studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving in charity, and pursuing philosophical wisdom, and performing the proper fruitive activities for the benefit of his family and society. But one who accepts devotional service transcends that. And Mahaprabhu convinces Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya of that. And when he convinces him of that, he comes to him early in the morning before he wakes up, and he knocks on the door. And Sarvabhauma wakes up, and he comes to the door, and Mahaprabhu said, I brought you Mahaprasad. You have to take it immediately. Jagannath Mahaprasad. Now, in Vedic culture, the rules are very different. The rules are, no, you have to take a bath first, you have to brush your teeth, you have to say your prayers, you have to do this, you have to do that. Then you can take food. But this is Jagannath Mahaprasad. This is Jagannath Mahaprasad. You have to take it immediately. So Sarvabhauma does that. This is spontaneous devotional service. He gives up his attachment to all the rules and regulations, and he takes to bhakti. He goes into bhakti and he completely surrenders to the teaching of Mahaprabhu that devotion to prasad is greater than the study of the Vedas, greater than performing austere sacrifices, greater than pursuing your philosophical knowledge, your fruitive activities, and your ritualistic practices. Greater than all of these is the practice of devotional service, of which honoring Jagannath Prasad immediately is the greatest thing, one of the greatest things, one of those things. And therefore, Sarvabhauma surrenders immediately He surrenders immediately, and he takes up this process. And he immediately surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, takes up Mahaprasadam, and then he admits, now you have converted me. I have given up everything. I have given up everything. I have taken up this process of Krishna consciousness completely. So, this is the 8th chapter of the Gita. We have discussed everything now. The 9th chapter is also Krishna speaking. There's no questions here by Arjuna, not till the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So we'll go into the most confidential knowledge tomorrow, and we'll discuss. This chapter is going to be broken up into several videos because so much information is here. It has to be discussed in detail. So we'll be discussing it in detail, and we'll be going over it, and we'll be explaining all of the things that we have learned from the different commentators on the importance of this chapter, which is right in the center of the 6 chapters on bhakti. Thank you very much. That ends the discourse for today. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.